Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be focusing on a commonly asked interview question for software engineers, especially for interns and recent graduates. So the name of this interview question is called two-number sum, or sometimes referred to as two-sum. So this is the question here for the two-number sum. Given an array of integers, return the indexes of the two numbers such that they add up to the specific target. So given an array of integers of n length, could be 5, could be 6, could be 7, and then given a target value, you want to check all the numbers in the array and see if there's a pair of numbers that will add up to the target number. So you may assume that each input would have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same element twice. Okay, so if we have 1, 9, we can't use that number twice to create the number 18. So we can look at this example here in this array. We can see an array of 2, 7, 11 and 15. So it's a 4-number array, and then we have a target of 9. So we can see that if we look at the numbers that add up to 9, we can see both 2 and 7 will add up to 9. So we would return the index of both 2 and 7, which in this case would be 0 and 1. So as you can see here, 0 and 1 is returned. Okay, so when you're asked this type of interview question, it's not always exactly the same as the one that we looked at. So sometimes rather than them getting you to return the index of the numbers that match, they might actually get you to return the actual numbers. So in this example, we've created a new example that we can go through. We can see that the target is 16. So 16 is the number that we're going to be looking for. And if we go and look through our array, we can find two numbers that will add up to 16. So the two numbers that we can use to add up to 16 will be 9 and then 7. So 9 and 7 is 16. And if we go through the rest of these numbers and add them up, we shouldn't get 16, or we shouldn't get any other return values apart from both 9 and 7. So we're going to jump into some code now. So if I just go through the approach that we're going to take initially, we can take the first value here, which is 2. So we can take 2 and we can go through all the other integers. So what we could try is we could try 2 plus 3, and then we can see that 2 plus 3 is 5. So then we can check to see if 5 is equal to the target number, which is 16. So in this case, 5 is not equal to 16. Then we'd go 2 plus 9. So 2 plus 9 is 13. So we'd go 2 plus 9. So 2 plus 9 is 11. So then we check, is 11 equal to 16? 11 is not equal to 16. We go on to the next element. Then we go 2 and 8. 2 and 8 is 10. Is 10 equal to 16? No, it's not. We're going to move on to the next element. And you can see exactly what we keep doing here, right? So we're going to compare 2 by adding 5, and we're going to add 2 to 2. We're going to add 7 to 2. And we're going to keep checking to see if there's any of these equivalent to the number 16. Then after we've checked 2 and all these other numbers, we're going to move on to the next element in the array, which will be 3. So we'll go then and we'll go 3 plus 2 is equal to 16. No, it's not, so we'll move on. So then we go 3 plus 9. Then we go 3 plus 8. Then we go 3 plus 5. Then we go 3 plus 2. And so on, so on. And then when we're finished dealing with 3, we're going to go to 9, and then we're going to check all the other elements with 9. And basically what's going to happen here is we're going to be creating a for loop, and then within inside that for loop we're going to have another for loop. So our first for loop is going to keep track of our first integer here, and then our second for loop is going to go through all the rest of the elements in the array, and then our outside for loop will then get incremented, so we'll add 1 to it, and then it'll be looking at the number 3, and then it'll go inside the second for loop and we'll go through all these again. So if this isn't making a whole lot of sense to you, I'm going to jump into a coding solution now, and it'll be a little bit clearer. I just wanted to give you this as a bit of an overview of what we're going to be doing. So I've just opened up my IDE. I'm using WebStorm. So I'm going to go and create a file, and I'm going to call it twosum. So twosum.js. I'm using JavaScript for this example, but if you aren't familiar with JavaScript and you want to use a different language, you can follow along anyway, and you'll get the idea and the basic understanding of how to solve this solution. So to start off with, we need to create our function, because we need a function that's going to do this piece of functionality. So we'll just say, we can declare a function by saying function. So function, then we're going to open up the brackets, and we're going to have to pass something into our function. So what's going to be passed into our function is going to be an array of integers or numbers, and then we're also going to be given a target. So a target for us to get. So we can call these two parameters whatever we want. I'm just going to say, we'll say array. So array for the first element, and I'm just going to say target. Alright, so array and target, and then after that we're going to do two curly brackets to open up our function. So once you do that, we need to start thinking about what exactly we're going to return, and we're going to want to name this function as well. So we're going to name this function twosum. So call it twosum. So we need to think about what exactly we're going to be doing and what we're going to be returning. So we've talked about our solution is going to contain 2 for loops, and most of the logic and the work is going to happen within the second for loop. But we need to think about what we're going to be returning. So we're going to have to return something. Right, so we put in return there, and we leave it blank for now. And what will we be returning? We will be returning, in this case, we're going to return the index of the 2 elements if it's found. So we need to declare some sort of variable up the top that we can add to. So we could say something like let, and we could call it result, and we'll leave it equal to an empty array, because we want to send back more than one number. So now we can jump into our for loop. So if we go for, then we increment, so we need an incrementer. So we'll say, we'll call it I. So let I equal 0, and then while I is less than the array length. So we want to go through the whole array, so that's why we're going to say array.length, and length is an inbuilt function in JavaScript. So we're going to move on then, and we're going to increment our I, so I++. Then we're going to go and create our curly brackets again, and the purpose of this for loop is just to basically increment over all the different elements in the array. So starting at the very first element, we're going to go through them one by one until we get to the end. Then within our second for loop, this is the one that's going to go through all the elements in the array again, but it's going to go through it every single time that we go to a new element. So you'll see now in a minute. So if I do for, and I'll call this incrementer, we'll say let j, we'll call it j, and this is going to be equal to 0 as well. And we're going to do the exact same thing for it. So j is less than array dot length. We're going to increment j the same way we've done it with I. So j++, then we go shift. So now we've got our curly brackets. Now we need to actually perform some sort of logic. So what do we want to do? We want to check to see if the two elements that we're checking is equal to our target. So if we go like this array contains all of our elements. So if we want to check the very first element in the array, we would do something like this. So array I. So in this case, the first element in the array, if the first element in the array plus, let's say, array j, which in this case we're asking is the first element of the array plus the other first element in the array equal to the target. Now we're actually going to have a problem with this, but we're going to change it later. But for simplicity's sake, we're just going to go with this for the minute, just to make sure that we're getting some sort of result. So I'm going to say equal target, and this is what we want to check. So we're going to wrap all this here in an if statement or a conditional statement. So we're going to say if this is true, we're going to do something else. So if, then we're going to wrap this in brackets. So if this is true, we want to go and do something. So what do we want to do? We want to really add it to the array, okay? So to do this, we would say something like result, because this is our array, and dot push. Dot push is a method that allows us to add to the array. So now what exactly do we want to add? So we want to, and that's a double equals there for comparing. We want to add the index. So we want to add, I guess, I and j. So we're going to run this now in a minute and see what we get. We're not going to get the right answer yet, but we're going to run it and see what output we do get. So one thing that we're missing is we want to actually return something, right? So we're down here, we want to return, but we are returning nothing at the moment. So we want to return result. So we put in result there. So now we're going to need to call our function to actually pass in the values and get the result back. So we're going to go and call the array. So let's say to sum. Now we're going to have to add this to a variable, or either console log it now in a minute, but just for the minute we're going to say to sum, and we're going to go and pass in an array here. So we're going to put 2, we're going to have 5, we're going to have 6, 7, 9, 4, 8, 2, 1, 5. Right, so if we go and look at that, we should have two numbers that add up to 16. So we have 9 and we have 7 together. So if we go and specify our target as 16 and we go and run this, we should see some results back. So to make sure that we can actually see what's being displayed, we're going to just console log this. I'm going to console log and close my bracket at the end. And what we're going to do now is we're going to run this and see what results we get. So if I go and run this, okay, so you can see the result that we get is 3, 4, 4, 3, 6, 6. So this is all dealing with the indexes of the numbers. So if we go and look at this, if we go to the index 3, so we start off at 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, so that's index 3. So it would be 3 plus index 4, which is the next one. So 7 plus 9 is equal to 16. That's true. And then if we go and look at our next pair that we get 4 and 3. So this is basically just the same, only it's reversed. So it's saying that 9 and 7 are equal to 16, which is true. Now, if we go a little bit further, we can see 2 6s. Okay, so we know that we're on 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is our 6th place. So we can see 8. So 8 and 8 is 16. So that's true. 8 and 8 is 16. But the problem we have here is 8 shouldn't be returned twice, because we can't actually use 8 twice. So one way we can get rid of this is we can do an additional check just before we go and add it to the array and we return it. So if we want to get rid of this value of 6 at the end, because it's not actually true, because we only have a single 8, we could do a conditional statement inside this. So something like if, and then we do, so we want to, what exactly do we want to check? We want to check to see if the element that we're on, that we're not comparing it with that same element of the same index. So what we could do is array, and then I is equal to array j. So this is just basically asking like, is the element equal to, is the element I equal to the element j? And if it is, we want to just skip it. So if we want to skip it, we could just put in a break here. So if we go and run this now, we shouldn't see the 2 6s at the end. So if I go to run, now we see 4 and 3, which is great because we know from beforehand 4 and 3 are 7 and 9. So 7 and 9 are the same. And you can see previously when we were given, or when we were told about there also being another pair, which is 9 and 7, but that's the same thing as saying 7 and 9. So we've also got rid of that. So we can see that there's just one pair in this solution here. So this has been the two-number sum. There's actually a more efficient way to do this, and I'll be making a video on that in the future. If you like these detailed solutions and my thought process of how I go about solving these, hit the like button and subscribe.